right. Hey, good morning, everyone. Well, third time in a month. I'm really excited to be back. And this time I brought a friend. How's it going, Lonnie?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing really good. So I know that I could just kind of throw you into this and we've done zero prep. And so I just really appreciate you being here. But I know that you know about as much or more than I do about fix and flips. And I just know a lot of agents, they get in all starry-eyed. They're like, oh, I see all these people making money and doing deals and being on Facebook posting their renovations. I want to be one of them. And I know personally most of the people who are posting on Facebook right now, at least, have been losing money because it's been a rough market for fixers, at least in my area. And
Mhm.
so I've had some pretty successful ones. I'm actually sitting inside my most recent successful flip because I live there. But I wanted to like bring you in as well because you're in Seattle. And so you're in a completely different market than me. And I just wanted to see what you're seeing. And so, I've done, just for the group, why I'm here and why I'm credible. I've probably made $500,000 in flips. I've also gone $200,000 over on a single renovation. So like, it kind of all levels out. And the stress is real. I've done probably a total of 10 fix and flips where I've sold them, and I have done two or three where I still own the property. I've also worked with dozens of investors, and I know how to do all the spreadsheets that make them feel comfortable walking into a flip, having a pretty good idea that we're going to make money because it's never a guarantee, right? So, what about you?
Yeah, for sure never ever a guarantee, and you have to have the stomach to like really truly risk putting yourself out there, especially if you're doing the flip yourself, right? Or have enough knowledge if you're uh, I would say advising, guiding your investors on which properties may or may not work, especially if they're people who've only done a few, right? Because they're really leaning on you as an expert to say, is this a good deal or not?
I was really grateful to, in the beginning of my career, have a couple of investors that found me and they just liked my hustle attitude. And so they needed me to find the houses, but they evaluated the flips. And
Mhm.
so I didn't have to say boo about whether or not it was a good deal. I just sort of sat there like a good little new agent and went, you like it? Okay, I'll go write the paperwork. But getting
Yeah,
to sit
yeah.
alongside them and watch them make decisions and then pick up the listing 3 to 6 months later and see how it went was just really valuable for me because I got to do probably a dozen of those with some good and some not so good investors. And the not so good investors just had deep pockets. And so I watched some folks just lose $100,000 at a time. And I'm like, can we not do this? Like,
Yeah.
can we pivot and do something else? And she was just like, no, no, one more time. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people who have, they're like, oh, I really like this. And the project is really great, or the house is really great as far as criteria, what they should be doing, as far as like what the market in the neighborhood says. But then what happens is they overspend on their rehab,
Yep.
right? Because they're trying to design the house for themselves on what they like and what they think should go into the property rather than this is what's going to appeal to the masses or appeal to this type of buyer at this price point. And so I've seen that too.
But I want to go full chip and Joanna Gaines. I
I
think that
know.
these 8 foot ceilings should be 11 feet. Can we put them on stilts? I've literally had that question.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've seen a plethora of things, and so when you're working with somebody, like what is it that you think you consider is a great deal for a flip?
I think like most of the time it's very market dependent. And right now I'm looking for something that is 50% of my ARV price. And that might sound like a really steep cut, but most of the projects that I want to take on right now with the cost of renovation are gonna be 100 to $125,000.
So
And
can I
so
let me just stop you for a second here, Hunter. Explain what ARV is just in case people have no idea what that
totally
is.
fair. So after renovation value. And so like we have to buy the house for let's say $150,000. And we know we're going to put 100K into it.
Mhm.
Most people look at that and say, okay, cool. If I then list at 300, I've made some money, right? I
Mm.
guess you made 20K if everything goes perfectly and you had completely free money the entire time, which you probably didn't. So most people look at that and they go, oh, that was a really good deal. No, I probably need to be able to sell that house for
Mhm.
400 or 450, and then I'm probably interested because if it's going to cost me 100K in renovation, I'm
Mhm.
probably likely to outlay at least 30 to 50K in real capital during this process because I personally am going to use hard money. And so everyone's process is different. I've got some clients that they have so much cash sitting in a bank, like I wish I could be them. I'm not.
Yeah.
And so they look at processes differently. They're willing to hold on to properties a lot longer than I ever would be
Mhm.
because they look at it like the capital's not doing much in the bank right now. They just need to go pay the taxes on the property once it's owned. That's just not how I work. I'm usually paying a 10% loan. And so I want to get in and out of that thing in preferably 3 months or less. And so I want to pick up a project that I can throw 100K into it after buying it for 150K and have it be the nicest thing in the neighborhood. It doesn't need to be the biggest thing in the neighborhood, but I want it to absolutely just knock the pants off of that buyer set, preferably in a three to low $500,000 range from my market because it's just a lot harder to play in the luxury market in my area. We don't have as many buyers. It's a lot easier for them to find an on-market property that's been super well taken care of, that's already got some updates. And so playing in that reno market just isn't as fun. But I can find a really disgusting hoarder home for 100 to 150 that smells like cat piss, absolutely looks like it's about to fall over, but actually is structurally sound. And you just gut it down to the studs, spend 100 to 120K in it and flip it and sell it for 350 to 400, and as long as your holding costs are limited to that 3 month period, you're going to walk away with a pretty clean flip.
Yeah, I think especially out here in the Seattle Tacoma area, um anything in the first time home buyer range is gonna fly off the market, right?
Yeah.
It's as you get up in price that we're seeing things are starting to sit and the wiggle room is not as much, right? And so I have people hitting me up right now like, "Oh, what did your listing go for?" And I'm not telling them right now because we're not close. We just went under
Find
contract.
me at appraisal in like 3.5 weeks. I'm still
Yeah.
like kissing my voodoo doll at night and tucking him in.
Right, that part, right? And so I'm not going to give away what we took a offer for, especially in a market that's 60% of houses are sitting right now, right? And so pricing totally matters. And so when you're looking at what's going to be a good flip, what's not going to be a good flip, what are you determining just besides the price point or ARV?
For me, timing is also most important. Like the reason I'm sitting inside the flip that I'm in right now is because it didn't work. Like, spoiler alert, this was the one that was $200,000 over budget. It was 6.5 months of renovation before we actually got it launched. And by the time we were done with the reno, the city laws changed. And so I went from intending to have four Airbnb units to having 3 units. And then the city was like, hey, you can only have two Airbnb units, and one of those needs to be
Ah,
term. And I was like, that's gross. Nobody wants to be near an Airbnb and no Airbnb wants to be next to a long-term tenant. What do you mean you changed the laws? I literally just spent 400K over the last
yeah. Oh
year
my
investing in the
gosh.
city, so this could be the thing that you said it used to be. And so that was my fault. I was not paying attention to what was going on with the city meetings. I could have probably applied for some permits early and been grandfathered in, but ultimately it was like timing is super important and I missed the boat. And so if I had known in advance that I was just going to convert everything to long term, because now that's exactly what they are, I could have done way different finishes. I wouldn't have spent $25,000 on furniture. I probably would have done the backyard differently. The a third unit would have two bathrooms instead of one massive one that makes you feel like you're in a palatial, palace of Zeus. It would have been more functional rather than more showy. Now, is it the piece de resistance of my portfolio right now? I guess because it's pretty and it's worth a lot of money, but only if someone will now buy it for me from me the next time I sell it.
Exactly.
two
Yeah.
years ago when I finished it, man, I was crying. It was like I was like very close to bankruptcy, and I'm embarrassed to admit it. It was like it took me as close to the edge as I had ever been before, and I just said, "Wow, I'll never do that again." And so all of my margins are now stiffer. My
Mhm.
belief in systems like sewer pipes and roofs that are 10 years old is much lower.
Yeah.
A furnace and a water tank that is 15 years old but technically still working is actually fucked, to put it perfectly. And
Yeah.
so
No,
you
I,
learn
I'm,
different things.
you know, I know saying that you were close to bankruptcy. I think a lot of people need to hear that, even though it's not something that you're like, oh my God, like I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but the vulnerability and the risk are real, right? And putting yourself out there because one wrong judgment, one wrong contractor that you work with right? And I learned this the hard way. When I was doing one of my flips, my sister was dating this contractor, and I wanted to be supportive of the relationship, blah, blah, blah.
Totally.
Ended up hiring him to do several things for a flip. And holy let me tell you, oh, like I had to go back, like he's laying floor and didn't clean the floor before laying the new floor. And so when I go in, there's stuff popping through the new
You can
freaking
hear it all
floor.
crackling
Oh my
underneath.
God. Yeah. New stuff popping through the flooring. Like he's lost pieces of like think cabinets. How do you lose a cabinet section? Like I don't understand, right? There's some shower things that we were trying to get done. I literally tried to give him the benefit of the doubt for about a month, and that's me after going in saying, no, this needs to be redone. This needs to be redone. And the wrong people can totally set you back thousands, right? And
They
not
either
just
cost you time or money or both, and usually it's
it
both.
was both.
And
Yeah, it
sometimes
was.
you got to redo the work too. You know, it's like
Oh no, we
it's
had
all
to do
bad.
that too. We had to do that too. It cost me all the way around, right?
So
And
how long do you give a contractor now in like what I call fuck up mode? You know, because like everyone gets to screw up at least once or twice, you know,
yeah,
and
they just
just
get
don't
once with
break.
me.
Okay, one time and
One
then
time. Yeah. Because the one thing is like especially now, right, where margins are so tight, like you don't get the ability to say like or mess up or think that you're gonna do something completely different than what I told you because there's plenty of other contractors right now that need work,
totally.
right? And I'm not trying to be a hard ass, but again, I've already been through that, right? I've been through the mess ups. I've been through having to redo everything. I've been through having to extend my timeline by a month or two, which is not fun,
Well,
especially
and I
when
think
you're
what
doing hard
people don't
money.
get is like on our end, okay, cool. So we've outlined the down payment. We're making
Hmm.
the monthly payments at this exorbitant interest rate.
Hmm.
We're hopefully we've included our renovation draws into our loan, but maybe we're paying for renovation outside of pocket too. You know, we've got utilities, we've got the oopsies that we don't think about, you know, bleeding into our net profit.
Yep.
And then they say, hey, it's only going to be another week, another week, another week. And I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, that week costs $2,500. Hurry up.
If not more.
Yeah.
That's like on the low end.
Well, that's why I play in my price point because
Yeah.
it keeps my buffer, you know? Like let's run some numbers really quickly. Like let me go to my calculator.
Yeah.
I buy a meth den for 150K that is structurally sound. Maybe I have just the foundation, but I got to do roof, windows, flooring. I got to wash the walls. I maybe have to do new sheetrock. The systems are toast. So new furnace, new sewer line, exterior paint, probably some gutters, throw in a nice landscape, clean up all of the things that are probably in the yard, decontaminate it, make sure that it's EPA safe and certified, you know, and probably spend, let's comfortably say, you know, I did one of these. I actually paid 160. We put in 85. It was gorgeous. 7204 North Colton, if anyone wants to pull it up in Zillow, Spokane, Washington. And we thought we were going to sell it for 300,000. So our projected profit was going to be 60K after paying ourselves back the 34 to 35K we were going to spend actually doing it. I don't remember the interest payments. They didn't matter. We were going to net 60K and drop 34. That made sense to me. You know, we were making
Hmm.
$2 for every dollar risked. I'm doing that all day long. We
Hmm.
actually sold it for 335,000. I still paid myself the commissions, and so we wound up
Hmm.
netting 92,000 after paying ourselves back. And we just kind of sat on that money because it was a really clean flip, and it was so nice to walk away going, "Wow, we're looking at everyone else kind of like breaking even or losing money. Let's just sit tight." And interest rates have gone bananas, and you know now we're that like because this was probably 25 beginning of the year,
Yeah.
and so way lower inventory then.
Yeah. So what do you think is more important right now, especially in this market? Like, do you think, sorry, buying at the right price, or do you think renovating right? Which one is more important right now?
I think buying at the right price is always more important. It's like I probably spend more on my renovations than most people, and I'm just okay with that because I buy at the right price. Everyone else who tries to fix it later by cutting on their renovation, it's sort of like you're chopping off parts of your body to like get through the transaction because you cheap out on the floors, buyers notice. You don't
Mm-hmm.
fix that one thing that's like just good enough. It looks weird alongside all of your really new things. And so if you buy right, you can build in a much heftier renovation budget and sort of do what I call a everything is DOA. And if you believe that everything is dead on arrival, and then through your process discover stuff that's not, you get to add money back to your budget rather than subtract it. If in
Yeah.
that scenario, very rarely do you come across, oh no, I forgot to include X, unless it's a brand new thing that you've never heard of. And sure, if it's your first flip, you learn things. I didn't really think sewers were that big of a deal because for years I had never had one fail on me. First one that failed on me, well, great. Sewers are now on the checklist. What about you?
Yeah, I think always buying right, right? The numbers have to make sense. You can always adjust the renovations, right? But you can't, once you buy, you buy, right? And that is
You
it.
own it.
Like,
It's
yeah,
yours.
yeah. You can't be like, hey, Mr. Mrs. Hard Money person, can I lower my interest rate or my points with you so I can make this work? It doesn't happen that way. They're gonna laugh at you.
Not only are they probably starting foreclosure as soon as humanly possible, but they're also never giving you money again.
Yeah. And I think also finding the right hard money person is super important as well, right? And
Yeah.
having that relationship because once they do know you, once they do know what your systems are, it's a lot easier to put deals together with them.
I've stood inside some pretty gross properties, and my hard money lender looks at me and goes, this one? And I go, have I ever done you dirty? And he goes, you have always paid your loans on time. I just want to warn you, I wouldn't buy this one. And I go, that's okay. That's my bread and butter. Let me have it. And I go for the really gross stuff because even though it's disgusting, if you find something that is, solid, the margins are just easier on that one.
Hmm.
What about you? Do you like the really gross stuff or I noticed that some people really like just like the fluff and butter.
I mean, I do like the fluff and butter because they're easy, right? But if it comes down to like a really great deal and it's disgusting, then yeah, we're gonna take it for sure, right? And if I don't take it, I'm gonna tell my investor about it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm gonna pass that deal along and then I'm still gonna make money.
How many times do you take a deal yourself versus like working for an investor?
Um, if I think the deal is amazing, I'm gonna take it first. Especially it, and well, I mean, this is the thing as agents, right?
Hey, I would do the same thing, and my investors
Um,
know.
yeah. And
My
here's the thing.
investor's first question is always, why aren't you buying this?
Yeah, I mean, because especially if we're coming across, we as agents get to see what's out there first. We're meeting with investor or people who need help, people who are pre-foreclosure, people who are going through a nasty divorce, people who are, need to get rid of something because it was left to them in an estate sale and they don't want it,
I
right?
love those.
Yeah, and if it doesn't make sense for them to keep it and it makes sense for me to take it, I'm gonna take it, right? If I have too many other things going on, I'm gonna pass it to one of my people that I know do right by me every single time,
Yeah.
right? Do you feel like you should take it too first?
I think it depends. It's like when I've got time and capital, it's mine.
Yeah.
Like I'm already in it. I'm already doing 90% of the work. It was one thing when I was a new agent and I didn't know how to do things. I felt like it was my obligation to hand it upstream to my client because they would handle it better.
Hmm.
I don't feel that way anymore. I really think that it's tough right now because real estate agents, landlords, flippers all get a really bad rap because there's a lot of bad eggs out there acting with a megaphone. And so
Hmm.
they're the ones that are getting the spotlight. But I know that the properties that I put back on the market are some of the best available at a
Hmm.
reasonable price, and I've done everything. And so the client that walks in, it's just really fun for me to get to see them be super excited about it and
Hmm.
see that they stay in the properties that I've sold them for a really long time.
Yeah.
So to me, like doing the work right, like you actually get the opportunity to do a service to the community when
Hmm.
you go after the hoarder home that's been on the block for 38 years smelling like cat piss and you turn it into something that everyone goes, wow, that is an amazing house. Like that means something to that neighborhood. You properly affect everyone's property value and give them more equity over that next 5 to 10 year bump. And so it's like, it's just a really great opportunity to give back if you do it right, or it's a great opportunity to completely take away and ruin someone's day if you shove a home down their throat that like you say, oh, look at the gingerbread, it's so nice. But did I do the windows? Did I do the roof? Did I do the furnace? Did I do the sewer?
Yeah.
You know, good luck with $60,000 of renovations over the next 10 years in your cute cell hole.
Well, and here's what you start to notice too. Like once you start renovating in a particular neighborhood, you're gonna see the neighbors for the most part starting to redo their houses or try to do cosmetic stuff to their houses. It's kind of like a domino effect, which is really
Totally.
nice.
No, I bought a triplex that like I legitimately, so I actually sold this triplex to my client and then she passed away and surprisingly she had left it to me in her will. So that was like super exciting. Most unexpected moment of my life. But when we bought it for her, we had to carry a heroin user off of the doorstep that like had a
Mhm.
needle hanging out of her arm. And it was just a horrible neighborhood. Now I live 6 blocks from it in what is probably a $1.2 million home. You know, it's like the neighborhood has grown up and we were one of the first people that was like, no, that can be nice. Let's make that nice.
Yeah.
Let's clean that
Yeah.
up. That appears to be the center of hell for this area. Let's buy it and paint it. And everyone now pays $1,500 a unit for what was, you know, used to be 300 of like just dingy horribleness, and everything around it is just 3 times as nice. So it's cool to see.
Yeah.
How do
Do you? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, how do you really like position yourself to be useful to your investors? Like, what do you do as activities? Like the agents on this, you know, watching this, what can they go out to do today or this week that like puts them in position to like run into these types of homes and be useful for the investors that they wind up finding?
Yeah, I think having good relationships with other agents, first of all, right? If they know something that they have that's going to be just ugly, nasty things that really have to be cash only, building those relationships with those people because if they know that you have people or you want to buy it yourself, and they can't, especially newer agents, right? But they're hungry, they're going to find stuff. So having those. I think also knowing how to find off-market properties for your investors, right? And I think being able to do the cold calling to find some of them, drop by, look at the properties. And then when we are looking at stuff, I know when my investors are like, "Hey, Lani, can we go take a look at this property?" We'll go walk it and then we're looking at and it's me with my investors and they're very good. They flipped for years, right? We're looking at everything to the flow of the house to can we add an extra bathroom somewhere if it's only a one bathroom? Can we make something into a master? What's the roof look like? You know, all the things that you're talking about, the HVAC, the roof, you know, is it on septic or is it on plumbing? Like, because that stuff does matter. Like, what's the foundation look like? We're looking at like if there's a chimney, right? Is there damage? And I
Right.
know how to, for myself, I think knowing how to look at a home is very detrimental as an agent. I don't care if you're working with an investor or first-time home buyers, right? Being able to walk through a house and say, this is going to be an issue, this is going to be an issue, this is going to be called out. Or on the investor side, this is what we need to change. The flow of this needs to be rearranged. Can we add a door over this way? Can we extend and add a bedroom this way? Can we walk out this door here and XYZ, right? Can we convert the second living room into a master suite instead and still find value? Is it going to lower the value or not? Is it going to increase it? And so these are things that me and my investors talk about. We also look at the lot size. We look at once we do the work, how are we going to market the property, right? What kind of buyer are we looking for? Specifically, why this house is going to attract XYZ buyers. And then what is it that we need to do in order to attract the biggest pool of those buyers as far as marketing? What story do we need to tell? What's the neighborhood dynamic? And so we look at all of that. What about you?
Well, before I move on to that, one thing I want to ask is like, I know a lot of agents in Washington, they go, wow, Lonnie, that's like a lot of opinions that you're having, especially in the state of Washington, which encourages you to like, always deflect and say that's outside of scope and outside of my lane. So, how do you get comfortable having those conversations? Because I think that what you just said is 100% spot on. And I personally have gotten really good at it and just knowing that having the right answer is like the best defense. But it has even helped me in my real estate career. I walked through a home yesterday. It's not a fix and flip. It's a brand new home in a beautiful community. But we're talking about staging and like minor details to make sure that this home flies off the shelf because our market is really tough. And I could just tell that I'm much more comfortable having really direct conversations because
Mhm.
I'm used to working with investors that are like, look, I either do or don't know what's going on, but I need you to be completely straight with me because hundreds of thousands of dollars are leaving my account rather than the appearance of protection just because we're selling an asset. But it's actually the same thing. Like in both situations, we're responsible for hundreds of thousands of dollars of our clients' assets.
Yeah. For me, it's really about how I learned to look at houses was in the beginning of my career, right? I went with my inspector and I would ask him as we were going through inspections, like why is this good? Why is this bad? Why would this get called out? What should I be looking at? And really, I dove really deep into that territory after my very first deal that I ever got into contract blew up within 10 minutes at the inspection. And I was like, never again, right? Never again.
I
And
got
that took
sideswiped by that. I need more information.
yeah, and I took that took me months to get into because it was a short sale. Short sales weren't very popular at the time. They were taking like a year and a half to close. And yeah, that was a huge lesson. So like I learned very quickly how to look at houses through an inspector's eyes, right? And if I didn't have something in contract, well then I asked my inspector, "Hey, how many inspections do you have this week that I can tag along with that I can learn from?" Right? So
That's awesome.
now I educated myself on that side of things. I think also educating yourself on the neighborhood, the dynamics. You have to be the go-to on what's the community like? What's going on? What are the goods and bads? And I'm not saying that you have to understand every single community, but there are tools out there to help you understand the dynamics of the neighborhood, of the area, of the city, right? And what's taking place.
Well, and I
Um,
think you also just have to be super good at looking at comps. Like I feel really comfortable in any area of Spokane, probably because our neighborhood dynamics are more easily defined by
mm,
socioeconomic platform, rather where Seattle has a lot of high socioeconomic platform neighborhoods that mean different things to different people. And so that
yeah,
comes into play. We don't have as much of that, to be sure, but we do get to look at like, hey, are we about to go flip a 6 bedroom home in an area that like really we should just go buy the 3 bedroom and make it super nice? Like, do we really need the extra thousand
yeah.
square feet and does anyone pay for it? Or
Yeah, I
we
think
just have to
understanding
renovate it?
comps are going to be super important, but I also think like understanding like what's coming in the city or in that area soon that's going to affect because if you're in an area so like say Parkland in over in this area, it's going through a lot of gentrification right now, right? And understanding that. But 2 years ago when people were flipping in that area or even three nobody wanted to touch the area because they're like, no, that's a piece of dump. Like
Right.
there's
Yeah. No,
like, and
that's
even
true.
now, people are still wary about like doing things in the Parkland area. Whereas I think the right investor, the right mindset, understanding what's taking place in the area and understanding that gentrification is moving through, you're ahead of what's taking place.
So I know we're wrapping up in the next, I guess we're actually at time, but I want to end with one crazy flip story that just went absolutely sideways for you. I already said I'm living in mine. It went $200,000 over budget, and that is not including the additional $185,000 that insurance paid for when it flooded. And so always check your pipes when you replace all the plumbing. Make sure you replace all of the plumbing. One errant copper rod was left in an eave and it froze and it flooded at the top of my building and rained all the way down through. And so after we were 6.5 months overdue, $200,000 over budget, we were about to launch. and then whole system froze and flooded 3 levels of the home, and we had to shut down for another 3.5 months to redo everything. But that was it was crazy. So now I get a beautiful place to live, and hopefully I'll sell it someday.
I think you will. You'll be fine. You'll be
Yeah,
okay.
the equity position in it is great, and it only cost me $1,000 to live in it because it's a great rental otherwise.
Yeah.
And I love the neighbors. It's a beautiful place to live.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I think this has been fun. Right. And I think if you get into flipping or if you're talking with investors, please educate yourselves. And if you don't know a lot, get in touch with somebody like Hunter or myself or somebody that you know that does a lot of fix and flips, and start really learning from them.
And listen to them. Like if you think a flip is a good thing and they say no, don't like get defensive. Ask them what they're looking at that has them say this is not a good flip because it probably comes from a very personally held close amount of money that was a lot that they lost in a very horrible way and they're trying to prevent you from doing the same. And so it's a hard game. There's things like passive investing where you're limited to the money that you invest the one time. It's like stocks. You throw some money in stocks, you could lose it or it could go up. But you never get like a call to invest more money. Your stock account never calls you and says the furnace broke.
And I would say, like, if you really want to, if you really think and want to do something, partner with somebody first.
Yeah. No, I've made a lot
Right?
of money partnering with
Yeah.
people. Even when I didn't have money, but I had the deal. If you have the deal, that is the most controlling seat. You can go find money players and find a way to be part of that deal as long as there's enough meat on the bone. So go out and make the deal, then find the money. Call us. Call me and Lonnie. We'll help you.
Bring us a deal. Awesome.
All
Well,
right. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. This was way more fun than the other 2 weeks, at least for me.
oh yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for thinking of me, and I hope we were able to teach you guys quite a bit.
Yeah, I hope so too.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.